Well, that's all right. You can see it right there. All right, guys. For the people that said they thought that the stuck float bowl in the carburetor caused the gasoline to pour down into the oil, that right in here was clogged with quite a bit of stuff. Kyle already took.
There was more sludge in there to begin with. I forgot to get it on video. There was some sludge. There was some water mixed in with the fuel. So
All right.
we're gonna clean this out. We're gonna pop the floats out and clean out the inlet.
Now, why did you say that you thought that would have dumped every single bit of gasoline into the oil?
What happens is this float, it moves up and down. This needle valve here is your fuel shutoff to the float bowl. If crud gets in there, comes down the fuel line and gets in there, it won't shut off the fuel flow. When the floats come up and the bowl overfills, it comes up through the main jet directly into the carburetor and drains down into the engine. And once it gets into the cylinder, it'll work its way past the rings, fill up the crankcase with gas, and give you a seized motor syndrome.
So that's not why the engine seized. The engine seized because there was a little black nut stuck right on this thing. And this thing is the flywheel, and that's the impeller?
No, the flywheel magnet.
Flywheel magnet.
There was a bolt stuck to there, seizing against the cover.
Yep, and there's a big dent right in there. You can see it right along here. This is where I probably scored that, forcing this to turn. When I took my screwdriver to see what would happen, I probably did that. But
this looks like it's turned over many times to make this much damage. So the nut might have been in there when it was running, and it just happened to shift position, so you could feel it seizing. Because that would take a lot of revolutions with the nut to make that score that deep. It actually pressed a bead into the sheet metal that you can feel on the outside.
I never guessed in a million years the whole reason why this seized up. Now, granted, it was smoking and fires flaming because the gasoline is in the oil. But the reason why it seized is because there was a nut right there and it got jammed, and that was it. All she wrote. It wasn't going to go anymore.
It's actually probably better that that happened, because with the oil all diluted by fuel like that, the internals of the engine would have worn out really fast. So
Saved by the nut.
It's a good thing the motor made the choice to stop and prevent further damage.
Yeah. Saved by the nut.
The nut helped you.
The nut helped me. All right. So Kyle determined, found it, and now we're going to get the carby cleaned up. The nut has been removed. One little... This is why when you go out on the river, you better have your nuts in order. Because if that shit happens out on the river and somebody's left it... Now, I'm not a mechanic. I don't take these things apart. I took as much apart, and I gave up, and I decided to have my friend, who is a very big expert. He works on all these motorcycles here, and no license plates.
The world sees your license plate when you leave the yard. You realize that. Anyways, the biggest problem with these modern floats is they're all plastic. Older floats had a tab to adjust, so you could actually adjust your float level. These are non-adjustable, and they have a tendency to overflow.
Oh, that could be the guilty party.
So on these modern small engines, it's always good measure to physically turn the fuel off when the engine's not in use, to prevent the gas from overflowing the bowl and loading up the crankcase and cylinder.
So that what you just said is why it was full of dirty. I mean, it was black. It was just black. It was that color right there, black.
I've actually pulled apart many engines. Well, many is in 4 or 5. One, even a brand new lawnmower that had one of these plastic float setups and was overflowing fuel. And the only thing you can do to fix it is replace the whole float assembly and hope that works. Instead of the older floats that just had a metal tab, you could just bend it a little bit and you'd be in business. This new style's cheaper, cheaper to build, I'm sure.
Now, what year do you think this machine is?
I have no idea.
All right.
It's probably within the last 20 years. I mean, everything looks really clean, and I don't know how to date these engines. There might have been a sticker on the housing somewhere that had a date at one point. There's usually an EPA compliance sticker somewhere on a small engine.
Well, it's these threads here that stopped me from being able to just buy another motor, which I was going to do almost, but I didn't. Is this part of your stuff, or did this come off from this?
This is part of my stuff.
Okay.
Little sprocket washer.
Without the threads, you can't turn your pump, and you can't turn the air pump, and so the water pump, the air pump, all those things won't go if you don't have these threads on your engine. And buying a new engine is all well and good, except for you get a cheap engine from Harbor Freight and you're not going to have the threads on it. So unless you've got a threading machine and you can create those threads right to the specific specifications.
It really wouldn't help much anyway. Most of these crankshafts just have a straight shaft with a keyway for the power takeoff accessories. So trying to make threads over a keyway
Wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work great. It's definitely not the normal average crankshaft you find in a normal horizontal engine.
At least I did one thing right. I stuffed a rag inside the spark plug hole so no crap would get in there.
Always a good measure.
Yeah. Okay then. That is 2. 1, it seized up because there was a nut here. 2, the gas was into the oil because the stuck float, just like somebody said while we were discussing it during open house on the forum. So, that's that. On and on we go.